Okay, it is iPhone time. iPhone 12, iPhone 12 Pro in the house. So let's start with iPhone 12. iPhone unboxings have always been brief, but welcome to the next level. The phone's on top, there's a USB-C to lightning cable, and this little insert which has some leaflets and a single Apple sticker. That's the unboxing. No charger, no earphones this time. But for the phone itself, there is so much to talk about. So, this is the blue. It's kind of dark, it's like a cobalt blue, which sits about halfway between something that looks professional and something that's kind of fun looking. And it's got the same glossy back and matte camera module as the last phone, but the big change is the form factor. It is so flat. I remember watching the launch event and part of me was really excited because I love minimalist design like this. I've caught myself a few times in the last couple of days just beaming at it like a proud dad. But at the same time, I was also a little apprehensive because, well, chances are the hand you're going to be holding it with is curved, not angular. Probably. And you do feel it. It's actually the only bone I have to pick with this design. This is not as comfortable to hold as the iPhone 11. I think flat sides really suited phones like the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 5 because they could literally fit into your palm. But as phones have gotten bigger, there's a reason that most have tended towards curved backs. But it is somewhat helped by two things. One, the fact that 12 is actually quite a bit smaller than 11. Like literally, apart from the fact that these two phones have the same 6.1-inch display size, the 12 is smaller in every dimension. It's shorter, it's narrower, it's thinner, it is 30 grams lighter. It's kind of like they took an iPhone 11 and just shaved off the entire protruding perimeter. And so for context, in the realm of iPhone sizing, it ends up just a tiny bit bigger than the iPhone 11 Pro, iPhone XS, and 10, but quite a bit smaller than the 10R and 11. If this was an Android flagship, it would be classed as compact. So I'm very curious to see how small the iPhone 12 mini is going to be. And the second thing, which somewhat helps with the feel, are cases. So I've got two here, the silicone and the clear. Random fun fact, these boxes are exactly half the size of the box of the phone. I'd be very curious to know if that's intentional. I really like the silicone one. It takes away the sharpness of the phone, softens the edges, but keeps the core design intact. The clear case, I'm not much of a fan of. I mean, I've never really liked them, but it's just that this year especially, because of the magnetic accessories that Apple's designing, they can't get around the fact that they've got to install magnets into the cases as well, and those aren't clear. Oh yeah, and the display on the iPhone 12 is a mile better. I mean, don't get me wrong, the iPhone 11, it kind of needed a screen upgrade, but it's just good to know that now that they've done it, it's a big one. It is still a notched phone, but they've moved from LCD to OLED, which amps up the contrast quite dramatically. It's got thinner borders and 2 times the resolution. So you can actually now finally watch 1080p video without needing to get the Pro model. Mind you, it does cost $200 or £200 more than the 11 does right now. And it does still come with a fairly limited 64 gigs of internal storage. But I would say that if you are choosing between the two, and you're going to use your phone for like 3 years or so, there is enough of a gap to justify that price difference. The 12 is also water resistant at 3 times the depth, coffee resistant too apparently, although I will not be trying that one. And the front glass is apparently 4 times more drop resistant. Also, I've just ordered a whole bunch of iPhone 12s for a giveaway starting right now. And to enter, all you need to do is to hit the link in the description and follow my Mr. Who's the Boss social accounts. I'll remind you about it at the end. Okay, so that's what $800 gets you. This is what $1,000 gets you. The iPhone 12 Pro. Being the Pro phone, you get the Pro packaging, which is, well, it's the same, but it's black. You got the phone on top, you've got a USB-C lightning cable inside, and the same insert. But the phone itself does feel different. And it's kind of weird because dimensionally, it's identical. The iPhone 12 and 12 Pro are exactly the same shape, to the point where you can literally use the same cases on either model, but the Pro just so happens to weigh 25 grams more. And that's for 2 reasons. There's an extra camera, and they've swapped the aluminium frame going around the edges on the 12 to stainless steel on the 12 Pro. But it is an undeniably better material. Like, steel is way more resistant to bending, to cracking, even actually to corrosion. Oh yeah, and they've polished it like crazy. Like if you go into work one day and someone tells you you have something stuck between your teeth, now you've got your mirror to check. But to be honest, for me, I'm not actually that bothered about the rims. I think the more important change with the Pro's body is the fact that the back has a matte finish. For me, it's such a peace of mind thing. I'm someone who likes to keep my phone clean, and so the fact that I can still use this phone without feeling like I'm covering the back in fingerprints, it keeps me sane. I say that, but at the same time, because the sides are now so glossy, you probably will end up fingerprinting them, which is minor, but if you're anything like me, you might find it a little annoying. Oh yeah, and something I've actually just realized while filming this video is that the extra weight of the Pro, combined with the fact that it has an extra camera on the back, means that it actually wobbles less on a table. So this is the iPhone 12, and this is the iPhone 12 Pro. Random fact number 2. Both these phones have magnets in the back. Now, they're not strong enough to be able to kind of stick the phone on a fridge and leave it there. We haven't tried that. But they are strong enough to pick up paper clips or SIM ejector tools. Not that I would recommend this, but just a fun fact. Anyways, I think it's fair to say that this year, the Pro isn't as much of a jump over the normal iPhone as it was last year. I mean, literally today I've had probably 5 occasions where I've picked up one of these devices, I've used it for a full 2 minutes, only then to realize, oh yeah, it's not the right one. Which is, I guess, why they've priced them closer to each other than they normally are. But the Pro does have a few things that you might not have realized. Obviously it has that one extra camera, a 2x zoom, but it's also got a LiDAR depth sensor on the back. It's got twice the storage at 128 gigs, and while the display technology is the same, the Pro can get brighter, about 800 nits versus 625. Now, for me, this LiDAR sensor has been a bit of a surprise hit. Basically, it's a sensor that sits alongside your cameras and fires out infrared rays to figure out how far things are from you. It feeds the cameras an extra layer of detail about what they're capturing. But at the same time, when I was watching this launch event and I saw it get announced, it's also something that was tough for me to get excited for. Because I've probably tested 15 devices this year which all claim to have revolutionary depth sensors, and with not a single one of them has it actually brought anything tangibly new to the table. This is different. I mean, I still don't think there's a whole lot that this can do that this can't, but at the same time, the difference it makes to augmented reality is like immediately noticeable. Let me give you an example. So something I used to do a lot on my iPhone 11 Pro was something called AR Measure. You could literally check the dimensions of a room or the amount of space you have for a new bookshelf you want to buy without needing to take out a measuring tape. But the one thing that all these older iPhones lacked, and I guess this newer base iPhone 12 also lacks, is depth information. See, to know how far two things are apart from each other, you also kind of need to know how far they are from you. And so what these phones have done historically is kind of used all the sensors that they do have to guess. And so while I have loved the feature, there's a pretty wide margin of error. And sometimes when you're plotting lines, you realize when you look from another angle that they're not actually attached to the object you thought they were, and you've actually just kind of drawn lines in the middle of the air. But the 12 Pro knows exactly where everything is. I've been using AR Measure on this, and it can get the dimensions of objects correct to the nearest centimeter. I was playing Angry Birds AR this morning, and it's probably the first AR app that I've ever really lost myself in. Because of the depth sensor, the objects in the game have a sort of permanence. They stay in place the same way that objects in the real world do. Even as you move around them, you get closer or further away, and that makes the illusion more convincing. The whole thing that normally breaks AR for me is when objects are kind of jittering around trying to figure out what's where in your environment, but that doesn't happen as much here. So there's that, but LiDAR also helps when you're taking photos. It can help you to focus on things faster. You can take portrait shots of actually much more complex objects than past generations, and it nails the edge detection. Plus, you can also take portrait modes at night. There's actually quite a lot of new camera stuff on both of these phones, and I'm covering it all in a full camera comparison going live tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Now, the final two main things that these new iPhones have are the A14 Bionic chipsets and 5G. Now, as for the chipsets, if you benchmark them, it'll tell you they're about 15 to 20% faster than the last generation. In reality, I can't tell. And it's not because these are bad chips by any means, it's just because the A13 from last year already handled everything I've ever wanted to do on my phone. I'm not saying that everything here is like snap your fingers instant, but it's just that I don't think the chipset is a limiting factor anymore. I think to get things to the next level, we need a higher refresh rate display. We'd need things like faster storage speed. We need better Wi-Fi connection in our homes. We need it so that third-party applications were maybe co-optimized with Apple to run as well as the first-party applications. So obviously these phones can play every game you throw at them. I did think it was a little weird that in the official announcement of the phones, they talked about how it could run League of Legends, just because what it can actually play looks a lot better than that. And as for 5G, I kind of live in the middle of nowhere, so I don't get any here. But it does work in a town centre environment, and there is an interesting feature that means the phone will only connect to 5G when it needs it, and then it can turn itself off, which should save battery. So that's something I'm going to test properly before a full review. 5G is in very early stages here in the UK, but alongside introducing 5G, Apple also scaled up FaceTime to now work at 1080p, whether you're on 5G or Wi-Fi. So, what better way to test it than to call the man himself, who is also testing the iPhone right now, Marques Brownlee. So, Marques, you're testing the iPhone 12. Do you have any initial thoughts?
I like them. I've been waiting for this design forever, so that's my favorite thing. The interesting thing I'm thinking about is comparing these two, because iPhone people are going to buy iPhones, but they're probably going to crush up the 12 and the 12 Pro a little bit, and they're very similar phones.
Do you think the 12 will be a better selling phone than the Pro?
I think the 12 Pro will sell better at first, and then the 12 will catch up and pass it.
Yeah.
So my bigger question is, how will the Mini sell?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy though, because it's like completely new product category. It's like no one actually makes a top-end phone, especially with 5G, that's anything close to that small.
I hope it starts the trend.
So do you think this design is an upgrade?
I like it. So I prefer it a lot because it feels more secure to me, like grabbing a rectangular side versus like the curved sides we just had on every other iPhone for a while. I think the grippiness is an upgrade. I think the design I like it a lot.
All right, amazing, man. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I'll catch you in a bit. All right, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to enter the giveaway. I'll leave the link in the description, and I'll catch you tomorrow for the camera test.